Hey everyone, and welcome back to Retro Legends. The Wii U is one of the most talked about consoles in Nintendo's history, a device that was supposed to continue the groundbreaking success of the Wii, but instead turned into one of the company's biggest commercial failures. However, behind its unfortunate run is a story full of ambition, innovation, and important lessons for Nintendo's future. Let's begin. After the huge success of the Wii, which sold over 100 million units thanks to how easy it was to play and its motion controls, Nintendo was in a tough spot. On one hand, the casual audience that made the Wii a global hit wasn't necessarily interested in a new console. On the other hand, the more hardcore gamers, who had already seen the Wii's graphical limits compared to the PS3 and Xbox 360, were starting to want something more modern and powerful. The competition was pushing more and more towards advanced hardware and increasingly complex online features, with Sony and Microsoft ready to launch new, even more powerful consoles. So Nintendo faced a big challenge. How could they repeat the Wii's success without losing the innovation that made it unique? Simply upgrading the technology wouldn't be enough, and Nintendo knew it. President Satoru Iwata, known for his design philosophy based on creativity and accessibility, was determined to create something new that would give the console a unique added value, something no other platform could easily copy. In 2008, shortly after the launch of Super Smash Bros. Brawl for the Wii, the first brainstorming sessions began for what would become the next console. One of the things that struck Nintendo most was the success of the Nintendo DS, the dual-screen handheld console that had taken the world by storm with over 150 million units sold. The concept of having two displays, a main one and a secondary one, seemed to open up interesting possibilities for home gaming as well. Thus, the idea was born to create a console that maintained this philosophy, allowing the combination of playing on a TV with a second screen built into the controller. The key concept was asymmetrical gaming, which is the ability to offer a gaming experience where the player with the main controller has a different role than the others. This would allow for new multiplayer modes and more dynamic interaction with the games. The second screen could show maps, inventories, or interactive elements that would enrich the experience. Nintendo envisioned a device that was a natural evolution of the Wii, but with more interaction options and an innovative design. During development, the team faced numerous challenges. One of the main ones concerned the balance between innovation and hardware power. Nintendo executives knew that the public expected a more powerful console than the Wii, but at the same time, they didn't want to get into a technical specifications war with Sony and Microsoft, who were already designing much more powerful machines. The goal wasn't to create the most powerful hardware on the market, but rather a console that offered something unique and never seen before. One of the trickiest things to figure out was the controller's design. At first, the idea of a controller with a built-in screen seemed cool, but it came with a lot of practical problems. Nintendo wanted the controller to be light, comfortable to hold, and easy to use, but at the same time, it needed a screen big enough to be useful in games. Plus, there was the issue of lag between the console and the controller's display. Nintendo wanted to make sure gameplay was smooth, with no delays in sending information between the console and the GamePad. Another tricky thing was choosing the right touchscreen technology. Nintendo looked at several options, including a capacitive screen like the ones on modern smartphones, but in the end, they went with a resistive screen like the one on the Nintendo DS. This choice was made because of cost and because it worked with a stylus, but it ended up limiting what the GamePad could do. As development went on, the team realized that, even though the GamePad was one of the console's most unique features, it would also be one of its biggest problems. The controller needed a constant connection to the console, and its battery didn't last very long, things that would limit how it could be used. Also, the GamePad was expensive to make, which meant Nintendo couldn't sell it on its own, or let games use more than one GamePad at a time. The project continued with ups and downs, with Nintendo convinced they had a winning idea, but also aware of the difficulties in communicating it to the public. When the Wii U was finally announced at E3 2011, the reactions were mixed. Nintendo focused almost exclusively on the GamePad during the presentation, and many viewers didn't immediately understand that it was a new console. The design of the machine was similar to the Wii, and the name Wii U suggested it was just an upgrade rather than a completely new console. This confusion proved fatal. Many consumers didn't fully understand what the Wii U was and why they should buy it. Even some third-party developers remained skeptical, fearing that Nintendo was trying to replicate the success of the Wii without a clear plan for the future. The console's launch in 2012 was accompanied by a decent number of titles, but there were no killer apps to drive sales. In addition, third parties soon began to abandon support for the console, preferring to focus on PS4 and Xbox One, which would be released the following year. This left Nintendo with an increasingly limited catalog, forcing them to rely only on their historical franchises. Despite its problems, the Wii U was a console that brought forward interesting ideas and experiments that would influence the future of the company. The Wii U was officially announced at E3 2011 with a trailer that focused almost entirely on the GamePad. Nintendo wanted to highlight the innovation of the second screen, showing the different gameplay possibilities it offered. However, choosing to focus only on the controller without clearly explaining the console created huge confusion among the public and even developers. Many viewers, seeing the GamePad up close and the Wii U in the background, thought it was just an accessory for the Wii, and not a brand new console. During the presentation, a clear image of the console itself was never shown, leading many to believe that the Wii U was just an upgrade to the previous platform, similar to what happened with the Wii Motion Plus or the Wii Balance Board. This communication error was one of the first signs of the difficulties the console would face on the market. Nintendo didn't help clear up the misunderstanding. The name Wii U gave the impression that it was just an improved version of the Wii, rather than a completely new system. Unlike consoles with names that emphasized a clear break from the previous generation, like the transition from Nintendo 64 to GameCube or from PlayStation 3 to PlayStation 4, the name Wii U suggested an iteration, not a radical change. Even the promotional graphics, which often showed the GamePad separately from the console, contributed to this confusion. Also, the design of the console, very similar to the Wii, didn't help clear up the confusion. The console was barely bigger than the one before it, with a shape that looked a lot like the classic Wii. This further fueled the idea that it might just be a Wii with a new controller rather than a next-generation platform. The fact that the Wii U was backwards compatible with Wii games and accessories also reinforced this perception, making it hard for the public to understand what was actually new about the console. The confusion wasn't limited to consumers. Even some third-party developers were puzzled about the nature of the console. Some companies initially thought the Wii U was just a hardware extension for the Wii, not a completely new system. This led to poor adoption by software houses, who hesitated to invest time and resources in a project that seemed unclear. After the announcement at E3, Nintendo tried to correct course, explaining more clearly that the Wii U was indeed a next-generation console. However, the damage was done. The initial enthusiasm quickly died down and sales started slow. Without strong supporting communication and with a not particularly attractive launch lineup, the Wii U struggled to establish itself in the market right from the start. The most distinctive feature of the Wii U was definitely the GamePad, a controller with a 6.2-inch touchscreen. This thing was at the heart of Nintendo's vision for the console, taking inspiration from the success of the Nintendo DS and its dual screens. The idea was to give players a brand new experience, letting them see extra information live, look at maps, manage items, or even keep playing without using the TV, thanks to the off-TV play feature. On paper, this seemed revolutionary and like it could change how we play video games. Nintendo showed off the GamePad as the center of the Wii U's innovation, highlighting how it could offer a unique gaming experience, setting it apart from the competition like PlayStation and Xbox. The idea of asymmetrical gaming, basically letting players have different experiences in the same game by using the second screen, could have opened up all sorts of new ways to play. However, in practice, the GamePad turned out to be more of a hindrance than a bonus. The first problem was the screen quality. With a resolution of 854 by 480 pixels, it was below the standards of HD screens already widely used at the time, and its resistive display wasn't as responsive as a capacitive touchscreen like the ones on smartphones. Also, the battery life was pretty limited, often less than 5 hours of playtime, forcing players to recharge it frequently. But the main problem was that few games really took advantage of the GamePad's potential. Many games used it in a pretty basic way, relegating it to secondary functions like displaying maps, inventories, or menus, without offering a truly innovative experience. Even Nintendo's own games, which should have been the perfect example of the controller's capabilities, rarely used it in a meaningful way. The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. HD and Splatoon used the second screen to display maps and manage inventory without pausing the game, but the idea didn't go much further than what we had already seen on the DS in 3 seconds. One of the games that tried to make the most of the GamePad was Zombie U, a survival horror game where the controller was used to manage inventory in real time, scan the environment, and simulate an alternate vision mode. However, despite the interesting implementation, the game failed to become a commercial success. Even Nintendo Land, a launch title designed to showcase the potential of asymmetrical gaming, failed to fully convince the public, feeling more like a tech demo than a game with a big impact. Another big problem was that you couldn't buy the GamePad separately, and Nintendo never made a second controller that worked with the console. This meant no games could use 2 GamePads at the same time. That got rid of any chance of expanding the idea of different players doing different things in local multiplayer. How far away you could use the GamePad was also a problem. Unlike similar devices like the Nintendo Switch, the GamePad didn't have its own wireless technology. It talked directly to the console with a short-range signal. This meant you had to stay pretty close to the Wii U to use it without problems. If you went into another room, the signal would often drop out, which made playing on the GamePad away from the TV less useful than everyone thought it would be. Finally, the GamePad's bulky design and how light it was, which made it look more like a toy than a cool gadget, didn't help it become popular. Other game makers weren't excited to design games for such a unique piece of hardware. They preferred to make games for more common platforms like PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. In the end, the GamePad, which was supposed to be what made the Wii U special, became one of its weaknesses. The idea was new, but the way it worked had problems, and it never really proved why it needed to exist. The Wii U's legacy, however, would be felt years later, with the arrival of the Nintendo Switch, which took the idea of playing games on a portable screen and finally made it practical and fun. The Wii U officially launched on November 18, 2012 in North America, November 30th in Europe, and December 8th in Japan. Despite decent initial success, with over 3 million units sold in the first few months, the console quickly ran into a series of problems that would ultimately seal its fate. One of the biggest hurdles was the lack of exciting launch titles. Although games like New Super Mario Bros. U and Zombie U were available, there weren't any real system sellers to draw in the crowds like a new The Legend of Zelda or a 3D Super Mario title comparable to Super Mario Galaxy. Also, many of the third-party titles were just ports of games already released on PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 like Mass Effect 3, Batman Arkham City Armored Edition, and Assassin's Creed 3. Although some of these ports used the GamePad's features a little, none of them offered exclusive experiences that made buying the console worthwhile. Another key problem was Nintendo's difficulty in clearly communicating the Wii U's potential. The console's name itself, which kept the Wii branding, created confusion among consumers. Many thought the Wii U was just an upgrade to the Wii, like an accessory or a new version of the old console, rather than a completely new system. The design of the machine itself, very similar to the Wii, didn't help distinguish the two platforms. This confusion also showed up among third-party developers, many of whom were unsure how to best use the Wii U's hardware. Also, the GamePad, which was supposed to be at the heart of the experience, was never really used in a groundbreaking way in most games, leading to a lack of interest from both the industry and users. Another critical issue was third-party support, which already started to falter during the console's first few months. While the Wii, despite its hardware limitations, had received a good number of titles from outside companies. Thanks to its commercial success, the Wii U soon found itself isolated. Important publishers like EA and Ubisoft initially promised support, but gradually abandoned the console when they realized that disappointing sales and the user base was too small to justify developing exclusive games. To make matters worse, the launch of the next generation was just around the corner. PlayStation 4 and Xbox One came out in 2013, just a year after the Wii U. These new consoles were much more powerful and offered an advanced online infrastructure, immediately attracting the interest of the public and developers. The Wii U, on the other hand, quickly started to look dated, unable to compete with the graphics and multimedia features of its competitors. The Wii U's operating system also had some big problems. When it first came out, the console had long loading times, a slow interface, and lots of updates, which often slowed things down even more. Nintendo tried to fix these problems with updates, but lots of people were already frustrated. Despite all of this, Nintendo still made some great games just for the Wii U, like Super Mario 3D World, Donkey Kong Country, Tropical Freeze, Pikmin 3, and Mario Kart 8. But these games weren't enough, and the Wii U just didn't sell well. Many of the best games came out too late to make a difference. A good example is The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, which was first planned just for the Wii U, but then also came out for the Nintendo Switch in 2017. This pretty much marked the end of the Wii U and the beginning of Nintendo's next console. In the end, the Wii U wasn't successful, selling only 13.5 million units worldwide, making it Nintendo's worst-selling home console in recent history. But some of its ideas lived on in the Nintendo Switch, which took many things from the Wii U, like being able to play it at home or on the go, and made them even better, turning the Switch into a huge hit. One of the biggest blows to the Wii U came when major game developers started to abandon it. Had agreements with several publishers to ensure good third-party support, and at E3 2011, trailers for games like Assassin's Creed, Darksiders II, and Mass Effect 3 were shown to would be a platform capable of hosting even mature and complex titles. However, in the first few months after launch, the situation changed drastically. EA, which initially promised strong support for a few titles, including FIFA 13 and Mass Effect 3, before abandoning the Wii U completely. The company stated that the console market wasn't profitable enough and that its focus would shift to Sony and Microsoft. Ubisoft and Activision followed suit. Although Ubisoft was initially enthusiastic about the Wii U and developed games like Zombie U and Rayman Legends, even the French giant decided to reduce sales of the hardware and software. Rayman Legends, originally intended as a Wii U exclusive, was later released on other platforms to ensure its commercial success. Other major publishers like Square Enix also showed little interest in the console, releasing few games and soon abandoning the platform. Some companies like 2K Games only released late ports of their games, often with reduced 3 and Xbox 360 versions. The lack of third-party support was a real disaster for the Wii U. With competition from PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, which offered more powerful hardware and a more robust online ecosystem, developers saw no advantage in making games for a less powerful console with a smaller user base. The result was that the Wii U remained almost entirely dependent on Nintendo games to sustain sales. Although Nintendo's first-party titles were very high quality, like Super Mario 3D World, Mario Kart 8, Super Smash Bros. For Wii U, and Splatoon, they weren't enough to keep the console competitive. Nintendo had experienced a similar situation with the Nintendo 64 and the GameCube, two consoles that had received limited third-party support, but in both cases, the company had still managed to maintain a certain level of success. With the Wii U, however, the gap with the competition was too wide, and even the most loyal fans began to lose interest. Console sales plummeted quickly after the first year, and hopes of a recovery vanished with the arrival of PS4 and Xbox One, which captured all the public's attention. Nintendo tried to revive the Wii U with new exclusives, but the pace of releases was too slow, and the lack of strong third-party support continued to weigh it down. In 2016, Nintendo officially announced the end of the Wii U's production. The announcement didn't surprise anyone. Having sold just a little more than 13 million units, the console became one of the worst-selling in Nintendo's history, surpassed only by the Virtual Boy. However, the end of the Wii U also marked the beginning of a new era for Nintendo. Many of the ideas introduced with the Wii U, like the integration between home console and handheld gaming, were revisited and perfected with the launch of the Nintendo Switch in 2017. Ironically, many of the Wii U's best games found new life on the Switch, where they reached a much larger audience. Titles like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Donkey Kong Country, Tropical Freeze, and The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild were re-released on the new console with great success, proving that the Wii U's problem wasn't the quality of its games, but the platform they were released on. Today, the Wii U is remembered as a big commercial failure, but also as a console that laid the groundwork for Nintendo's future. Though mistreated and forgotten by many, the Wii U still left a significant mark on video game history, serving as a lesson for the Kyoto Company's future strategies. And that concludes our trip down memory lane. How many of these fun facts did you already know? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more journeys into the world of retro gaming. Thanks for watching Retro Legends, and we'll see you in the next video. Stay retro, stay legends.